Friends, we welcome you to day 3 of our Q's on the Hill, final day of our Omega Day at the Capitol. We thank you for tuning in and hanging with us for day 1, day 2, and here we are at day 3. Day 3, we saw it fitting to unify. We reach out to other groups, organizations, and entities because we can't do anything alone. We know it's about collaboration and complementing, not about comparison. In doing so, we realize the groups that we leave off often are the newer generations. So we have a panel called Unity Across the Generations. We have some talented young student leaders from the Highs to Seven Hills, Florida Agricultural Mechanical University, record-breaking student leaders, mind you. We also have some leaders in the organization, as well as some people with some esteemed credentials. But first, before we begin, we'll open us up in a word of prayer. Most gracious and Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to unify. We pray you allow us to be blessed by this panel, as well as to those in the audience viewing. We pray that we continue to unify so that we continue to build upward. In Jesus' name, thank God, amen.
Amen.
Right now, I'd be honored to bring to your moderator for the afternoon, Mr. A.K. Thomas. Mr. Keenan Thomas, a professor at Florida A&M University, a well-rounded contributor, and I would say community advocate to the greater Tallahassee community. Also a 2018 initiate of Chi Omega chapter of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So today, before we get started, I just want to make sure that we set the tone before we introduce our panelists. This morning, we created a space, a platform for people across generations to sit down and engage in a necessary conversation, if only briefly, about the economic, social, political realities shaping our lives starting right here in Florida. We're at a critical crossroads. The future of our communities depends on intentional intergenerational collaboration. Time and time again, young people have stepped up with bold ideas and fresh perspectives. But it's up to all of us to build a bench, to nurture that leadership and make space for innovation, not just inspiration. But let's be clear, our communities are under threat. We are being bombarded with distractions and targeted by detractors. There are active efforts to rewrite our history, desensitize us to violence, and drown us in a culture of consumerism, urging us to spend recklessly while ignoring the mounting challenges of a $36 trillion national debt and rising costs driven by global tariffs and economic instability. And amid it all, misinformation and disinformation thrives, clouding our judgment and dividing our people. So today's conversation isn't just timely, it's urgent. Together, across generations, we must reclaim the narrative, amplify truth, and co-create the strategies that will economically empower us, politically mobilize us, and socially strengthen us. And at this time, I will allow the panelists to introduce themselves before we get started. Sorry.
Yes, good morning. I am Dr. Willie Williams. I have had the pleasure of serving in multiple capacities as it pertains to youth and young people as a director of programs like Tallahassee Future Leaders Academy for the city of Tallahassee, PACE Center for Girls in Leon County, and several other organizations before returning back to the university where I serve as a professor. My research interest entails things such as firearm-related violence interventions, undergraduate transition into the professional field, and then young men and boys Black health.
Excuse me. Good morning. My name is Casey Dennis. I'm the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of the Big Bend. I got the pleasure of leading this organization for the past 21 years. It's come with a wealth of knowledge about the youth in our community. Definitely want to give that perspective to them.
Good morning, I am Lauren Canty. I'm a second-year public relations scholar from Macon, Georgia, and I currently serve as the Deputy of Student Lobbying and Government Relations at Florida A&M University, and I'm the newest Junior Senate elect for the 55th Student Senate.
Greetings and good morning, everyone. I am Zayla Bryant, a third-year business administration scholar hailing from Atlanta, Georgia, and I currently serve as the 54th Student Senate President, and I will be the 2025-2026 SGA President-elect for FAMU, and I am a Spring 24 initiate of the Real Beta Alpha chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Good morning, Dr. Carl E. Gilmore Jr. I am the current Bosses of Chi Tau chapter, Also founded our mentoring program at Chi Town, Orlando, Florida. I'm happy to be here.
Good morning, good morning. I'm Donovan Bryan. I'm a one-year MBA candidate from Miami, Florida. I'm also a Spring 24 initiate of the Miami Melodic Bloody Up Upsilon Psi chapter of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated.
So thank you again to all our panelists for being here, and we'll go ahead and get started with the first question. So introductory statement. Florida leads the nation in the number of Black-owned businesses, which is both a point of pride and a sign of economic resilience. But sustaining and scaling these businesses across generations require more than just entrepreneurial spirit. It takes mentorship, access to capital, and shared strategy. So how can Gen Z, Millennials, and Gen X collaborate to support and expand Black-owned businesses in Florida? Dr. Williams, you want to start off?
Sure, thank you for that introduction. I believe the thing we must do first is actually build a foundation of communication. We have to admit that there's been communication gaps between the generations that has led to us not being on the same page oftentimes. And so one of the things we need to do prior to actually making that first step to seeing how we're going to address it is to actually come back together and build those communication lines between the generations, especially our young people. We've got to the point now to where we don't even share the same social media platforms. And that's emblematical of how we stand now as generations as far as communication overall. We're over here on Facebook, they're on Instagram, TikTok, and everything else. So until we actually merge those lines of communication together, we'll always be on two separate pages in the same book.
That's understandable. I think when it comes to local businesses, especially around Florida A&M University, it's a matter of ensuring that we're maintaining those relationships, as stated before, and allowing students to. I think it comes down to like both people coming up to the table. Like I know a local hair salon called Celebrities, which is literally right around the corner from FAMU, and Olene's, which is right across the street from there. Those are local small-owned businesses that are from FAMU alum or FAMU adjacent, and they are always looking to give back and find ways to like have students engage with them because it's a symbiotic relationship where we both benefit from supporting one another. And so creating platforms and opportunities where we can actually meet at one space is something that us as students can do on the campus while also, or even like going back to their respective spaces like the salon or even the restaurant, doing discounts and different deals to entice students to come back. So if we always keep in mind the entrepreneurial spirit to ensure that you're bringing in that audience, and also us as students being receptive to these different opportunities, that would really help ensure that that relationship is still maintained.
I think one of the things that we often forget is the driving force, which is the monetary piece. They say that the Black dollar stays in the Black community no longer than 40 minutes. And there's no way that an entrepreneurial spirit can sustain that. We have to make sure that we're investing into these entrepreneurs more than 40 minutes, make sure the Black dollar stays within the Black community. And I think that's one of the things that we really need to hone in on. I think the recent ban to Target, that had a financial impact. We need to sort of be intentional where we spend our money to encourage the level of entrepreneurship we would like to see.
I was about to say, kind of going off of what Dr. Gilmore just said, my business background might show a little bit, but I feel like it comes down more to, financial literacy. It's important that we have that kind of bridge for financial literacy in our communities, and that knowledge that we gain at the top level is being passed down. I feel like that's essential because we all, going to FAMU, I've seen a bunch of people, have their entrepreneurial mindset, try to start their own businesses, and like the question said, access to capital is one of the main barriers to that. So I feel like learning how to, leverage debt and do things that you learn through financial literacy courses would be essential.
I personally believe that buying Black is not a trend. It's more like a legacy. I think we definitely need to teach our kids the importance of working together and being able to solve have those conflict resolution skills, so that when they become adults, they're able to work together and build those Black businesses that we know that our community so greatly needs.
And I'll just add that Target was a great example, right, of how that communication went across all pipelines. It wasn't a social media platform or communication line that wasn't touched by that. And so when you unify things like that, you have an impact. It has an outcome impact and an output impact, right? And so after we have bridged those gaps amongst the generations to bring everybody to the table, I think the next thing is to really figure out how do we start advertising those black businesses so that people are aware of them. You know, back in the day, there used to be a phone book. And then at some point there was a Black Pages, right? Where you can look up prominent black businesses.
Yeah.
What's out there now to tell me what are those businesses here in Tallahassee? I'm familiar with Orleans, I'm familiar with a lot of these, but there's some out there that you'll never know unless you know somebody. And so we have to get rid of that word of mouth and really start getting on all of those communication lines to let people know that we exist. Let's get this money circulating within the system.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said, like the gaps in communication. Because with the thing with Target, there wasn't a social media platform that I did not see that blasted on. My father, he called me, he's not on any social media, and he was like, you know you can't go to Target, right? So I don't know how, but like we definitely need to replicate that in almost everything we do.
And so, actually touching on that theme and building on Target is a great segue to the next question. So, despite our state's growing economy, the unemployment rate for Black Floridians remains higher than that of other groups. This isn't just a statistic, it's a signal that something systemic is being missed across age, education, and industry. We need more jobs, but in the past, society forced us to build our own companies, but we need to create banking institutions, healthcare facilities, supermarkets, distribution and manufacturing facilities, so that we are not at the mercy of companies like Target to ensure that they have a DEI policy to hire us. So what strategies can different generations implement to close the employment gap and create more equitable job opportunities in the Black community? Mr. Dennis?
Yes. Wow. I personally believe that exposure builds expectations, and I think that that's where we definitely need to start as far as the youth. Definitely having the opportunities to tour or see different, jobs or fields of business. The Boys and Girls Clubs, I'm making my effort to make sure that we're taking those kids to see hospitality or nursing or welding and different things like that, so they understand that these are great options just in case college. We know college is not for everybody, but just definitely want to make sure we give our kids that exposure to as many different options as possible.
I kind of want to continue on with your point. A teacher of mine used to tell me that if I could see it, then I could be it. And it's definitely something that has resonated with me during my time here at FAMU. I think one of the best things that the university has ever done for me was doing forums twice a week, exposing us to different Fortune 500 companies and the opportunities available. And what makes those moments even more special are when FAMU alumni come back in these different positions, letting us know that not only did I do this, but I did it well enough to even come back and present another opportunity to keep the door open. So I think those things have inspired me to allow myself to intern at 18 in Chicago, something I never thought I could ever do. And so when I understand that and get exposed to a greater world than just these Black microcosms of people, it's like I just didn't know these things were possible, like you had mentioned before. And so that's just really my main point.
When we were having a conversation literally before the session started, and I was telling them, when you get out of school, go see the world. Work for a company that will allow you to travel and see different cities. I was sharing with them how I lived in maybe 6 different states in the span of my career, and I found Florida as one of those places I could rest in, but I've seen the world. I've been out and out of the country, and exposure, not only geographically, but knowledge as well. As the moderator AK talked about the job shortage, there's a real thing happening now called AI. AI is replacing jobs. Robotics are replacing humans. And we have to be exposed to that technology. We have to be the early adapters of that, because we can leverage AI to create those jobs, to create that technology that we're trying to replace. So I think geographically exposure and also from a knowledge perspective, be open to new technology, be open to these new concepts of doing businesses.
I feel like it's more so not just exposure, but it's also, you know, nurturing the dreams that may come upon this. Like, you may see things like that, but I feel like as a community, we nurture the athletes and those that we see may, you know, take that next step. But we have to start nurturing someone who says they want to be a doctor, they want to start their own hospital or start their own Target. Like, those are the dreams that we need to start pushing forward so we can keep that within the community.
So I think this is such a prominent conversation that we're having. One of the things we must do is we have to be intentional with building this pipeline of excellence. And it starts again with bridging the gaps, right? One of my classes is professional development. I realized that I had to be intentional with making sure our students had the foundation of resume building, being able to introduce themselves with a handshake, and transferable skills. And what I realized is I had to bring other professionals in to help speak and show them. And so if we bridge that gap, all of these professionals, like those that are in this room, should be mentoring what we would like to see take our place. It's like one of our panelists said, you can't be what you don't see, right? And so that it comes with mentoring, it comes with bringing in speakers and you all being available to shed some light on experience. One of the things I tell my students is the best way to move forward is to either have somebody that's already been there that can show you how to navigate this field, or to start putting those steps in place so that you don't misstep and waste time or money, right? And so we have to make sure that we're doing whatever we need to do to make sure every step that they take is impactful. And it starts with us bridging that gap, building those relationships, and building that pipeline.
So, in building on the idea of the gap, so building wealth and financial literacy. The racial wealth gap remains one of the most stubborn disparities in America, with Black median households' income significantly below that of white households. The conversation around generational wealth is more urgent now than ever, especially when younger generations are more financially burdened than their predecessors. So what role can each generation play in promoting financial literacy and creating long-term wealth in the Black community? And I'll start with Lauren.
When it comes for me, I think it's just more about having those people around you that do have some form of financial literacy, especially like on young people. When you see people around you that you look up to who are already in these positions, it kind of like inspires you to know, yeah, this is possible. Again, like the exposure. And I think that's something that FAMU really did a good job at exposing to me. I really don't feel like I would have been in this room today speaking on a panel if it wasn't for my institution and those people that it gave to me to look up to. So again, like how do you give people who, like again, like aren't at HBCU around so much Black excellence, how do you communicate that to them as well? That's my personal question.
I get that. I think this is the main way we can really engage students with being financially literate. It's about the passive learning through mentorship. I can go to every Wells Fargo training session possible, but I think that you can't really understand the gravity of the situation until you see it and how it impacts people positively and negatively. Somebody like myself, I didn't grow up in a household where we were the most financially literate. And so I know what not to do, but I don't know how to correct my path to really get it to be in a prosperous position later on in life. And so it comes down to not only just making sure that you're doing a 30-30-30 rule when you're budgeting your money, but it also comes down to those passive decisions that you have to make. Like, what is the appropriate amount of money you should probably put into your bank account? What does grocery shopping budgeting look like, especially when we're in inflation? Like, those kind of decisions are things that we don't have readily answers to because we don't have somebody to directly look towards. And I think that comes with similarly to what you were saying, making sure that our predecessors are our predecessors are readily available to answer these questions. And I think that a lot of the generations, they're kind of closed off to their own sectors and it makes it seem like they don't want to be bothered with my Gen Z issues because they don't really affect us, or even the communication gaps in and of themselves. Like the way that we speak is completely different from those that have come before us or even after. So I think that if we're a little bit more intentional, as you had said, on ensuring that we are expanding ourselves beyond our comfort zones as older people, as younger people, to meet in the middle, then that will really help us with ensuring that we maintain the wisdom that'll be passed down through financial literacy.
I may show my age, but I remember my freshman year at Lane College, at the student union, they had credit card companies sitting in the student union getting people to sign up for credit cards.
That's right.
And it baffled me that that was the first exposure you had in college life, is putting yourself in debt. And I think that's been a long-standing belief, even when you had parents putting utilities in their child's name. I think there's a cycle that we have to break in order to get to that financial literacy. We need to be less reliant upon credit and be more secure with cash. And there's a thing that we put a sacredness over credit so much now. You have these pop-up that says you can just pay over time. Don't buy what you want. I think we need to get the mindset shifted that we're so reliant on credit. Cash is king. Cash is king. You can get more money off a CD than you can have money sitting in a savings account. There are 2-month CDs out there that you can put money in and gain interest on. So we need to get less reliant on credit and be our own financiers. As we talk about entrepreneurial, we should be able to finance Black businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely believe that we need to teach money in the same way we teach football, basketball,
So,
TikToks, line dancing,
speak on it.
With that same passion and that same energy that we bring to those things, we need to teach our kids about money in that same way, so that they're able to, grow and live a productive life. Definitely.
It comes down to knowledge sharing. Like, I feel like people have kind of get in that mindset. Some people in our community, they get in that mindset where it's just like, I'm gonna get mine, and whatever happens after that is whatever happens after that. So I feel like the first step is to definitely get out of that mindset and be willing to be that, that bridge builder for someone else. Be that that shoulder that they can lean on and lift as you climb, basically.
So I have a question, because I used to be brought up TikTok. I think one of the things is Gen Z, that movement, you're used to getting things in a very quick manner. And sometimes loan money takes a long time. But I think that the instant gratification of having it now makes the Gen Z population makes them reluctant to wait on that loan money. And so while credit is out there, I think that's the sort of thing, it's like, it's posted for 5 minutes and it's gone. So you want that instant cash flow, and sometimes that instant cash flow just doesn't happen, because right now everything is a microwave mentality. It's relevant for 5 minutes and then it's gone. It's on to the next. So I think if we can look at money a little bit differently than we look at how we expect our outcomes to be quickly, I think maybe we can probably bridge that gap, because it's not going to happen overnight.
That's why I say, speaking for, I'll say my generation specifically, like if you've lived those 20 years and you've seen the return on your investments, like why aren't you out there, spreading that information? Like this is how this worked for me, so I'm gonna show you basically how this worked for me, or how you can do this better. I feel like that's one thing that we might be missing.
I think, to your point, being an engineer, being a lawyer, being a doctor just don't look sexy. When you go to a Boys and Girls Club, you say, hey, I'm a nuclear technology leader. It's like, okay, did you play football? We have to make professionalism look sexy again. It's so much relevance on athletics, being a music producer or artist. The professional career has lost its luster.
Yes, ma'am.
We've taken the importance out of education, the importance of a solid career, because now you can be a podcaster and you don't need to go to school, and they downplay the importance of an education where you can get that financial literacy, or you can get that public speaking engagement training from a class. For some reason, we've lost our lusters as professionals.
So
But we can have it all.
Can I just jump in real quick? Because you invoked the Boys and Girls Club, and we have the executive director of Boys and Girls Club here. So could you speak to that?
Yes, most definitely. I agree with you, but I think we definitely need to give the kids those bite-sized bits of information that they can digest the way they digest, TikTok and those types of things. So we break it down piece by piece, 5-10 minute intervals or whatever, to teach them about the importance of that long-term money. They're able to get that information in a way that they can understand it and then use that in the future. And also, you mentioned about getting the kids out, how certain fields aren't sexy. It's not sexy unless when they don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
When you get them into there, you get them into those nursing fields, you let them see what's going on. I tell you, a lot of those kids come back and say, hey, I want to be a nurse. This is kind of sexy, this may work for me or whatever, but it's definitely about giving those opportunities, those semi-hands-on opportunities where they can feel it, touch it, and say, hey, this may work for me. Definitely.
And that's what this conversation is all about, right? It's always going to tie back to bridging the gap. Those lines of communication, it's always going to keep coming back to that, right? And I'm about to show my age because DJ Quick used to say, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Y'all better know, right? If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. We have to start taking a non-traditional approach to something that is traditionally passed down in certain generations. Knowledge is an investment that leads to inheritance if you do it right.
Sweet.
And so we have to merge these gaps. I know that people have to see what they want to become. And so some of the speakers I bring into my professional development class is the young lady who got the nails, she got the hair done, and she just pulled up in an $80,000 BMW. And the students are like, whoa. And then she tells them how she makes 6 figures as a traveling nurse. Or the person that comes in and, his bottom grill is gold. And he has a little swag when he walks in. But he's the director of a whole department, Florida Department of Health. And so sometimes you have to put the message in a different format. You may not be the messenger. You may have the message and have to give it to the messenger, and then the messenger gives it to the next generation. We have to start making them the messenger, because the students may not listen to us, but they'll listen to them. And so maybe your job is to stay in the lane and teach that one, and then that one go speak to the 1,000. And I think that's what we have to start doing, because we can have the best of both. We can teach them, I know how you can make $30,000 on TikTok, but let's also prepare for the long game and show you how to put that aside. We don't have to pick and choose. Nobody else does.
Right.
And so we shouldn't limit ourselves either.
So I kind of want to touch on the instant gratification thing that you all mentioned. So right now, if you're on TikTok, there's a trend for younger folks right now going around, and it says, pockets extra sloppy. Don't I love my vegetables with extra cheese and broccoli? Don't young LA like to kick it like karate? Don't I be with Jay Money serving everybody? And it's cash, and people are on here with big, huge wads of cash. And that's what is proliferating right now over TikTok. So to my younger panelists, how does that influence you all? What do you all think about that right now
I feel like our generation is very unserious, and so when it comes to some of these things on TikTok, it's there one day and it's gone the next. I mean, our attention spans are very short, so I mean, that's what has it right now, that's what has it, but like, think about, so how we were just talking about like financial literacy, what if we brought that to those creators who are making up these viral sounds and saying it like that? So while you're scrolling on TikTok, you're gonna be on TikTok anyway. So let's just go ahead and slide this one little 6-second clip in there, and then, inform them that way.
You wanna go ahead? Okay. Well, if I'm honest, I'm not as much on TikTok as everyone else. I kind of vaguely know what you're talking about. But I think when you're dealing with instant gratification people, you're right in that you have to serve it in digestible pieces. I also think that it needs to be a challenge where those digestible pieces start to come together to be a little bit more long form over time. to make a story, or just so that you guys, so that we work on utilizing our brains for longer than 5 minutes. And that's something that I recognize, and I was just talking to Lauren about this, something that I recognized while I was on internship, like dealing in actual corporate spaces. You guys use your brain like all the time. Like it's constant. You have to critically think from 9 to actual 5. Like never, like I know that's crazy. It's a crazy thought. Like, oh my gosh. And so, just exercising your brain to even be active that long is something that our generation does not do. So I think a job as somebody who's in a teacher position or a mentor position, just ensuring that we're exercising that muscle, outside of getting the instant gratification of a laugh or some cash or whatever it may be.
I was about to say, like it was said before, you know, you see those wads of cash and you aspire to something usually. So I feel like if you kind of tie that in with, you know, one of those positions, those jobs that you spoke about, like maybe a doctor or a nurse, a travel nurse, like you said, like a travel nurse, like yeah, has anyone ever seen those videos where it's like they walk up to somebody in the car and they're like, oh, how much money do you make? Or what do you do? So it's like something like that should trend in a positive way where it's like, you know, you're seeing someone that looks like you saying, oh yeah, I do this, this, and this. You may see this car, but however it took work and I did, you know, I was a travel nurse, I did things like that. So just promoting that kind of positivity instead of putting, you know, just wads of cash in front of trends and things like that. I feel like it's more so about promoting positivity.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. The reason why I chose to come to FAMU is because this nicely dressed black man in a suit. I promise this is my first time I've ever seen a black man in a suit, and it wasn't for a wedding or a funeral. And he was coming to pick up his daughter, who was my best friend at the time. And he came out this fresh off the lot Lexus. We came to a house in a gated community. Never heard of that outside of like on TV. And then their house was the house on top of the hill on TV again. I'm like, I'm living in a dream right now. Who is this? And I asked him, how did you even do this? How did you become this? He said, oh, that's easy. I went to the highest of the 7 hills. I said, oh, okay, then I'm going there. And I knew that. I knew where my heart was going since 3rd grade, and I never wavered on that, despite any other HBCU or university for that matter. Sorry to the Knowles and to the other HBCUs in the room. But yes, you're 100% right that like it just takes making it look cool. And honestly, you get duped into doing the hard work when you realize what the outcome is.
So that's a perfect segue.
I'm sorry, I wanted to speak from the OG perspective on this subject. I personally, you got to meet them where they are. You know, they got the wives of money or whatever at the Boys and Girls Club. We do a lot of TikTok. I'm doing a lot of TikTok. Y'all gonna see me in a lot of TikToks because that's what the kids want to see. That's what they're doing. Whatever, but you just gotta, so that they'll ask me, oh, the wise of money, what, Mr. Casey, you ain't got no wise money like that. I got wise money like that, but why would I be showing all of that? You know, like, so use it as a teachable moment, so that the kids can, once again, digest it in those little small pieces so they can understand it. Maybe this is not a good idea, but yeah, I do my little share of TikToks and stuff. So.
We appreciate your service.
And it's meeting people where they're at, right? That's what we're talking about. And so one of my side businesses, I do firearm. I do firearm instruction, firearm, pretty much everything. And one day I was in a competition, and a young man walked in, 20, must be a student. Had the hair, and everybody's looking like, who's this young guy? Come to find out, this young guy got almost 30,000 followers, right? And so I went and watched his TikToks and his YouTube. I'm like, man, my man, he loose with it. Rather than coming to him and saying, hey, you need to correct this, you need to do this different, you need to do this different, that's gonna pull the business. I went to him and said, hey, how much you making off these YouTubes? That's one form of money. What about getting a license so that you can teach people how to do this? You created an LLC yet? What I came at him with, okay, now how do we expand your business? And you know what he came back with? Where your YouTube page at? Where your video equipment at? Because you've been doing this for how long? And so now I ain't got a YouTube page yet, but I'm working on it, right? I don't have TikTok, but I'm working on it. But it was that exchange of information so that we can both build. And so there's always room to build. And so we have to meet people where they're at, and we got to be willing to say, come at a different direction, rather than coming out to say correction, come out to learn and teach. And I think that's going to be one of the tips toward bridging those gaps.
So, building on education, so over 90% of Black Americans over the age of 25 have a high school diploma, but that success hasn't translated into equitable higher education access or trade skill development. We know education is a gateway to opportunity, but generational perspectives on what education looks like are changing. How can we create pathways to education and training to uplift our youth and ensure that they have supportive environments for thriving in education in the classroom and once they go home? Now, yield to Zayla.
Okay, somebody else.
All right,
Sure. Again, I'll go back to it. I did research on does the socioeconomic status of an athlete matters. And doing this research, I was able to show a significant influence from kids who come from a lower income, have a higher probability of playing in the NFL or being drafted than any kid in the world. So there's something about athletics that inspires, but there's something about academics that doesn't. And it goes back to how do we make academics, how do we make professionalism relevant again? And I think that's the place where we need to get back to. Quite often, a lot of public schools are and these teachers are not investing into the CPC and these schools. They're going to these private schools where they make a little bit more money. We got to make education relevant again. And I think education and professionalism has lost its luster. I had someone ask me, why would you wait so late to get your doctorate? I said, well, I'm always seeking knowledge, indefinitely. Always. There's always more to learn. And somehow or another, we've lost that because Gen Z, don't get offended. It's not that thinking long term or that 9 to 5, it requires that. And that's a sacrifice. Like, do I really want to invest this much time sitting in a classroom where I can go get it online? I can go get it on the ground. And that's the chasm. How do we make education in those bite-sized pieces so education becomes attainable and also affordable? You know, if you live in the state of Florida, you should be able to go to school pretty much free. We don't make college education affordable. And most kids say, I'm not going to debt, I'm not going to get a student loan. And that's another piece that we need to get past. How do we get past the bite-sized pieces of education, if that's even attainable, and how do we make it affordable for anyone to go to college?
I think that a part of the issue, not even that education has lost its luster, I think that it's gained monetization. And so, like, the reason why we have all these different private schools and outside curricular activities is because people see the hidden gem that is students. And people will put thousands of dollars, millions of dollars into different educational programs to make sure their student is ahead because they see the long-term goal that you had mentioned before. But if you put a money value towards education, you've already disqualified about half of the people to be able to participate because a lot of people are lower income, middle income, and they have other things to prioritize in their budget. So I'll say I was fortunate enough to be a part of those different programs that allowed me to be where I am today, but I know that majority, if not all of my peers weren't in the same financial position as I. And so when you're in this kind of situation, you have to seek different avenues to get the money for invest into yourself. So that's scholarships, that's making sure that you're doing the research, and even the digestible little TikToks and stuff. Like, there are people who are willing and able to compile the information necessary for you to do the work. Like, you don't have to start from ground zero for you to get ahead. Just understand what resources are available and actually leverage them.
I think we have to revisit priorities too. Yeah. If you show me where you put your time, talent, and treasure, I'll tell you what your priority is.
Yeah.
I remember back in a time where it wasn't negotiated whether or not you was gonna do the Easter speech. You was gonna do an Easter speech, but that's phased out. But I can tell you what hasn't phased out. Age of 5 going into Pop Warner football, right? That's gonna be an earmark forever. you're gonna play football, right? And so we have to make sure we start undoing those things and doing things different. The tide doesn't change if you don't change it, right? And so we have to be intentional with it. We have to start younger. And that's us mentoring the next generation mentoring the next generation. It blows these elementary and middle school kids' mind when high school kids come out there to talk to them, or college kids, Miss FAMU, Mr. FAMU, SGA president comes to a high school or a middle school to speak. And so we have to make sure we establish those lines of pipelines, because there's been other pipelines established on us that are permanent as in a moment that we haven't been able to undo. And so in order for us to undo it, we have to start to where it started. They already have the numbers for how many kids in elementary school are going to make it into the prison pipeline. But yet we don't have a number for how many are going to make it into college. We have to undo it, and we have to start young. And so that calls for us to start putting our time, talent, and treasure someplace else. And so the next time somebody sends you a Pop Warner fundraiser, make sure you're also doing a fundraiser and sending some money to Boys and Girls Club.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that. But I definitely agree. I think we all understand and can agree that degrees are important. But so are also trades, certifications, reading books, all those types of things definitely matter. You know, working at the Boys and Girls Clubs, I've worked with, thousands of kids. And I know for a lot of them, college is not the answer. College is not the way for a lot of those kids. But it's important that we teach those kids and let them know that no matter what, growth is definitely non-negotiable.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And to go back to making professionalism attractive to us again, at a young age, we're playing these different sports, whether it's football, baseball, whatever, basketball. That's easy for us to do. We see that it's so much easier we see that so much easier for us to do than going to school from 9 to 5 every day, using your brain, and then having to do that from grades K through 12, then having to do it at work. Well, why would I want to do that when I can just go dribble ball? I can do that anyway. That's easy for me. That's a talent. That's my God-given talent. So I think it's just about making it more attractive, and again, like, what benefits can you really reap from being a professional versus being an athlete? Because you still working for the white man at the end of the day when you do get to play these sports. And I think it's just like the perspective of it.
Well, one of the things that you touched on, I think, is the sustainability that education provides that athletics don't. Because at some point you age out of sports. You can't age out of knowledge. And a lot of times you see a lot of athletes who retire, they don't have anything to fall back on, or what they have to fall back on is traits that they came from, which were the streets. And they lose that quick win. I think from a sustainability perspective, you have to look at it that lens. I'm not saying all athletes are not sustainable or have residual income coming in. I think you say, well, how does it look attractive? Well, you got 401ks, you got Roths, you got things that roll over. You have a nest egg. I mean, to me, that's the attractive part, the longevity, the long game. Can you retire and live how you live now and be comfortable? And because when that NBA or NFL contract expires, you don't get those big checks. I have a couple friends that did play, and they didn't understand when you went to a different state, you got taxed based on that state's tax bracket. Mm-hmm. So a lot of athletes would move to Florida or Texas where there was no state taxes. Some people did get smart, but some people didn't even know how to manage that money because they were getting taxed and they weren't paying taxes when they should. So financial literacy. How do we even make our athletes understand what those big checks represent now versus what they need to be in the future? It's just one of those things where you have to sort of step back and say, how do we get everybody financially inclined to protect their wealth so they can have generational wealth?
And I'll just echo what our brother Casey said, is that education is education. So even getting those students to think outside of the degrees and just picking up a trade is important, because I had a guy come to my house to do some plumbing work, and he said $250 to find a hole, and I was like, $250? That's gonna take care of it. He's like, no, that's to find a hole. And I was like, wait a minute. And he said, you're the third house today, and I got 4 more after you. I started rethinking my career as a professor. I was like, you making this kind of money on a daily basis? You ain't even started to work. Okay. And so whatever it takes to get that money flowing in the system, whether it's the education, the academics, the university, or even the trades, we just got to start plugging these young people into something, right? Some kind of contribution into the community.
So I think at the root of all of this that we've been talking about, of course, as we are here in the not building at the Capitol, is politics and political participation. So Black voter turnout has historically shaped elections, especially in 2008 and 2012, when we saw record-breaking levels. But in recent cycles, turnout in Florida has dipped, especially with early and mail-in voting. This generational gap in civic engagement could impact the policies that directly affect our communities. Just to give you a few stats, how many know that Florida is one of the top 5 states with the largest African American voting population? How many of us know that there are 34 million eligible Black voters in the country, but only 15 million Black people voted nationwide? As of 2025, Florida is home to approximately 3.36 million Black or African American residents, comprising about 15.34% of the state's population. In the first election when Gen Z was able to vote, that was in 2022, they voted more than every other generation before them that had their first time to vote too, except for baby boomers, and they were only off by 1%. However, in this last election, Gen Z's turnout was lower than everybody else's. So what initiatives or innovations can increase political participation across generations in our community, especially among young Black voters?
I'll start with the age thing again. The very first time I voted, I actually left my home. I never saw my mom or my dad vote. Never took me to a poll. And I think, again, what you don't see, you don't necessarily do. And it dawned on me when I really got into being involved. I was like, I've never seen my mom take me to a voters poll. Like I didn't know how to cast my vote when I went the first time. I actually had to get help. And if the parents are not taking the kids because the parents don't think their vote matters. And I was in an area in St. Louis, Missouri, where most Black people didn't vote. They didn't think their vote mattered. They complained about the issues, but they didn't put no precedence in the act of voting. And it's odd, even as we work the polls, some people only vote for the president and the vice president and leave the rest of the ballot blank. That's a problem. How do we educate people about the whole ballot? Brother Drake usually sends out ballots and what the bills or what's coming our way, and he sort of sends you like a snapshot of what ways are the Democrat and Republic are going. We had a session about Democrat and Republic. So at this particular junction, there is no right or wrong. It's just a lot of wrong happening. And so we got to get past the Democrat and Republic piece so we can put the human back into humanity. So how do we educate people that their vote not only matters, but at the local level? Like those votes really do impact your day-to-day life.
I don't know. I feel like in terms of initiatives, I feel like it should more so be, a part of the curriculum. Like you're able to vote when you're 18. I voted in my first presidential election, this last election. I was 17, the last one. So I feel like having that knowledge, I of course had some knowledge, due to taking civics classes or AP. But having that knowledge, when you're 16, 17, so you're ready to vote when you're 18. And like, that is not just about presidential elections. More, honestly, the elections that matter the most, I feel like, is the legislation and, voting for your senators, voting for who's going to represent you when it comes down to, those rooms where they're making these decisions that we just see the outcome of. It's about what you put in. So I feel like people don't see the importance of their vote because they don't see the levels of how the government works. So working that into the curriculum, I feel like would be a big step in what we need to do, especially in our communities and in our schools, because I went to a magnet school. So, I didn't necessarily have it in my curriculum, but it was talked about more so than it would in another school. So I feel like just pouring that into our communities and into you know, the people that are gonna be the next generation of voters is gonna be important, so.
Yeah,
I agree, Doc, and I'm with you. I came from a household where I didn't see anyone voting. We didn't talk politics. My stepfather was military, so whatever was told from the top came to the bottom, but there wasn't no discussion, right? And so I didn't start voting until I came to Florida A&M, and then I had to learn like you. Okay, I need this card, I need this ID, and I'm actually ready to listen to the young people because I know that Taylor Swift made a post during the election, and the next day 35,000 people went and registered to vote, and they saw 110% increase in 18 plus. Because of her one post. And so I would like to know what's going to be the secret, because you guys are the key to changing these dynamics, because at some point we're going to sit down.
I think a part of it, going back to the original point you had made about the right message, wrong messenger, I think that more students need to take the lead in teaching about politics rather than just being susceptible to whatever decisions are made on the big end. So I think something that I did during my time at FAMU was like teaching sessions, telling people about legislative process, and then doing like real life in person like simulations of what it would be like to actually lobby, what it would be like to speak to a legislator, what would it be like to read or go to a committee meeting. And so I think those things, and also like the basic thought process behind political theory is something that I think it's very intriguing how politics work, but I don't think a lot of people understand that they also have a say-so, and that it's okay to have an opinion, which is what politics really is about. What is the best way to live our lives? And when people start having more authority over their lives, as opposed to being victims to decisions that they don't have a say-so in, that's when they'll become more active in the political process, understanding the power that you actually have over your own life and over the lives of others.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback off of that because we just had Family Day at the Capitol, and those trainings leading up to that day, it was just to get students more acclimated with what's going to be going on that day. But, you know, we had those 4 trainings, and attendance was, you know, a bit low at first, but when we got to that last meeting, and for students to actually meet legislative aides, that's when they got a little bit more bright-eyed about, you know, everything. And so to see people coming here in this actual building, like everyone was so inspired that day, and it was a really good thing to watch. I feel like if it's more about meeting students where they're at, just because, you know, we are in school, not everybody's paying attention to legislation that's being passed. So if we were to meet students where they're at, whether it's social media or even face-to-face, get them somehow, some way to come and show their face. And I feel like it would just give them a much bigger perspective on what's really going on and make them more willing to participate in the process.
So one thing I'll add to it, I always talk about the day after elections. And so we gear up and we do all this work, we go hold signs, we go knock on doors, November 5th comes, the election is over. What do you do after November 6th? After November 5th on November 6th. Our community is great for gearing up for the presidential election, but there's a midterm election coming up. And right now, I don't know how many people are Democrats in the room, but the leadership on the Republican side has already selected its candidate for governor. Democrats are silent right now. So what do we do to re-emphasize and regenerate the enthusiasm surrounding our voting base?
I think there's a thing where we say we can't be silent. We have to demand more for our civic leaders. We have to demand a response. We as Democrats, I'm a Democratic, you have to tell them what you want. Talk with your commissioners, talk with your city mayors. Tell them we need a response. We can't continue to, I hate to say use the Muhammad Ali rope-a-dope action, but don't fight back. There's a purpose of the rope-a-dope. You sit on those ropes for a minute because you're resting up for the real fight, the real battle. I've yet to see someone step up for that battle. It is time for us to step up to that battle. And then once we do that, I think that's, from Gen Z, y'all have to demand that. Someone has to be your voice. Someone has to be your why. Because if you don't stand up and say, this is what we need in our community, on our universities, on our campuses, we'll remain silent. Silent is not an option right now.
Like I said before, I feel like it comes down to the education. Like, a lot of people don't know when the midterm election is coming up. As sad as that sounds, like people, I mean, of course there's priority in a presidential election, but people will see the presidential election and think, oh, once, you know, that administration voted in, I guess that's it. Like, there's nothing else for me to do. I did my part. I voted for who I was gonna vote for. So it is what it is, but they have to realize that it's bigger than that. A lot of the things that get passed honestly happen at the lower level. So it's important that, you know, you just educate people on, you know, this is where your vote's gonna go. And it's important that you vote for this because soon, you know, for example, I'll say in a senator election, for example, someone at a university will really not know, you know, necessarily what their role or responsibility will be. So it's important that you know, are passing that information out, like, this is what their role and responsibility is, and this is what they can do for you. And as soon as you know, like, what that person can do for you, that'll give you that initiative, I feel like, to go to the polls and vote, and realize that your vote is more bigger than what you think it is, so.
I agree. I think it's big to figure out what people care about. When people care about something particular and you can navigate that and say, well, this is how it relates to this election, then they're way more likely to participate and then read more on their own and, you know, do what they're supposed to do.
So, and this kind of leads me into our final question as we begin to close out this session. I do know that there is sometimes some crying out from the younger generation to the older generation that they don't want to relinquish power. And so, from healthcare disparities to community safety, social issues deeply impact our day-to-day lives, but solutions often feel disjointed across age groups, with older generations calling for structure and younger voices seeking transformative change. What do you believe are the current needs and expectations that each generation has of the other in order to ensure mutual success? And how can we intentionally bridge those perspectives to build stronger, more united Black communities in Florida and ensure that the baton is passed with purpose?
I'll take that one a little bit. We had a conversation yesterday at session 2. Some people in my age, we get protective of what's in our wheelhouse, and we don't share knowledge like we should. There's things that we should be passing on, but I think we don't believe that you're going to give us the time to pass it to you because we didn't summarize it quick enough. And I think that's one of the bridges that we need to gap. How do we communicate in those bite sizes of the things that we've learned over 20 and 30 years? And it's hard to condense a life experience or a organization or policies in snippets. And that's the true, I think, gap we have here. How do we effectively communicate the importance of what is to come and what you see to be in a way that you can digest it in your level of understanding, which is, you know, in bits and pieces so you can digest it and come back. I think that's one of the things so sometimes you get protective saying, I know they're not gonna understand or cherish or take this to the next level because they didn't get it all. We weren't able to communicate and transfer all that knowledge. And I think some people just hold on to it because they're afraid if they let it go, it will diminish. You know, and it's no different than our history being rewritten or erased. We have to sort of find a way to communicate the importance of what the foundation that was laid before us and before you and how you can move it forward. But again, we need to figure out how can we get that to the Gen Zs? How do we bridge that communication gap? Because in essence, that's really all it is. We're long-winded, you're short-minded. We gotta figure out how to get those two things to meet.
That makes sense. I think I also would probably like to bring to the forefront, just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong. And I think that is some old head thinking sometimes, where it's like, just because I didn't do it exactly the way you wanted me to, it doesn't mean that it won't be successful. And so I think that there's some room for merger here where we can be a little bit more attentive to what you guys are saying. But I think if the underlying principle of whatever it is that you're actually trying to relay is understood and taken heed, then there's ways to take the bits and pieces that we're able to keep in our short-mindedness and expand and transform. And I don't even think that it's a matter of like keeping what's been structured this entire time maintained. I think it's a matter of transformation, because if we were to keep on these same structures, you think I have a short attention span. Imagine my little sister who's 13. It's not gonna get any better. And so my thing is, we have to just be mindful of the transitions that come with these generations and find ways to teach and allow room for growth. Because I'm sure you don't know every single thing that your father probably passed down to you. And that's okay, because look where you're at now. You still managed to make something and carry the name in a way that he probably never even imagined, something you probably never even imagined. And it's still phenomenal in the way that it's transformed. And so I think just allowing students or allowing the youth to take something and turn it into something that no one really expects it takes a level of trust. It takes a level of letting go and ensuring that, trusting that they are level-headed enough to make the decisions necessary to make this something of substance.
So this past summer in Paris, we had the U.S. Olympics, and the men's 4x1 team did not place because they did what?
Drop the baton.
They dropped the baton. The last time the United States won in the 4x100 meter was like 2000. Each time they dropped the baton.
Drop the baton.
The most talented 4 people. Oftentimes we had the top 100-meter runners on that team. So it wasn't talent, it wasn't skill, it was lack of preparation. And so if we don't start grooming the next generation to take over, we're gonna keep dropping the baton, because that's what's happening. We're holding on to these seats so long, the person that should be next finds another interest.
Yes.
And then a vacuum starts to happen. And that's where we're at now with the lack of African American leadership in positions we need them to be in. There's a vacuum. Nobody wants to take it. Because the person that held it for so long, we celebrated them because now they have no choice but to sit down physically. And so we have to start making sure we create, again, that pipeline to where we're grooming the next person to take over. We're not sitting down because we have to. We're sitting down because we want to, and we're comfortable with who's coming next.
And I also think something that's passively being taught when we hold on to these seats too long is like, I gotta get it out. Or not get it out, but I have to get it for myself. When this is not about you. It's about something that's greater and bigger than you. So when you're talking about these different entrances and alleyways to get to something, that's why the quick money is advertised. That's why this, that, and the third, because we at the end of the day, we both want the same thing. It's just a matter of we give them the opportunity to do it.
Teach us.
And so, yes, teach us how to do it. And I think that patience isn't really there with the younger generation, older generation, younger generation too. But I think the eagerness is there to kind of compensate for that. And so it's a matter of teaching people to slow down, which is something that we haven't taught either. And so that breeds a crab in a bucket mentality where we also don't want to collaborate either. Because I've learned subconsciously that if I want this to succeed, I have to do it on my own because no one else is helping me do it, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
I'd just like to say, working with kids for the past 21 years, one of the biggest things that I've noticed is our kids are hurting. There's a lot of trauma that is going on, and I think one of the biggest things that the old heads can pass down to the younger folks is that it's okay to heal. It's okay to find those different sources that are EMDR therapy, those different ways to truly get inside your head and heal, because we are a hurting people. And we need to think, kind of outside the box in ways to, heal some of this traumatic things that we've had in our history. And I think that we definitely, like I said, the old heads can pass that down. But it's okay to heal.
Can I ask a question about that really quickly? That's something we also haven't learned from you guys either. How do y'all heal? Or do y'all just work until y'all forget? Like, that's what I've seen.
So a lot of us work until we forget, but some of us have understood the power of therapy and the power of trying to figure out how we can all heal collectively. So, I'll be the first to say, hey, therapy has worked wonders for me. I'm not ashamed to say that. I think we all have had those issues that we just kind of, as black men in particular, just look over. Hey, I'm gonna work through this. I'm a man. I'm gonna go get some help because I want to make sure that I'm there for my kids, for my wife, in the best version of myself. So I think that's important, and that's what I pass down to my personal kids and all the kids that I serve. Hey, let's get you some help, definitely.
And I would say, for the old heads, we were taught as men to be tough, push through it, and most black men, age of maybe 40, we have PTSD. We have childhood trauma that we're carrying. And it wasn't until my mom died June of last year, I said, oh, I need to get some help. And therapy is one of the things you have to be able to be comfortable to be vulnerable and allow yourself to heal. You can't suppress pressure bust pipes. You can't suppress those feelings and thinking that you're wrong for feeling the way that you feel. For a while, I thought I could just, I just feel the way I feel. I'm different. No, you're not. You're hurt. You're hurt. And so you have to be comfortable with speaking to someone or speaking with a close friend, sharing your experiences so you can have that self-healing process begin.
All right, so with that, that is the final question for our panel discussion. At this time, I do want to thank all of our panelists for work. And at this time, I will bring my brother Drake to close us out.
All right, let's give it up for our moderator, AJ Thomas. Having the foresight to put this on. I'm gonna be honest, there was a little bit of discouragement about even trying to do this. But we said, we have to be vigilant in it because not everybody's gonna get it. We didn't know what we were gonna get. And these panelists, they dropped some gems of knowledge. You don't know what anybody has in their head or what they've accomplished. I mean, it takes a lot for people to maintain and sustain. We look nice, but you don't know what everybody's gone through to get here. And we acknowledge it. And keep in mind, all of us were young at some point too. So we, but this is just the start of this. And can we do this again next year? Should we do this again next year? We've taken notes from the generation. That's why we are live streaming it. And make sure you tag me as a collaborator. I learned about that too. So maybe collaborate. I got a little over 20,000 followers. We're gonna get this going. But this has to keep going. So we thank you again for coming out. I'm gonna bring up our state president, 25th state president of Omega Florida statewide organization, Rural King, because we're closing out our Q's on the Hill activity. What we're gonna do though, immediately after this, we're gonna, some of the brothers out there, we're gonna come here and take a picture with our panel. Also, we have an opportunity for a tour of the Florida State Senate, and we're gonna go to the 4th floor after that. And also kudos to the committee that put this together. I see much of the committee out there. Y'all did a wonderful job. These students, we are going to stay in contact because as well as the other persons in the community, it's about collaboration. If we don't collaborate, we lose. And we got some wonderful people out here who work. So we're gonna exchange all the info and be across the board. So now to give you closing remarks, our 25th state president, my boss who instructs me daily, Mr. Royal King II.
Thank you, Brother Drake. Good afternoon, good morning. Friends and guests, panelists, we appreciate you for being a part of this. This is important to us because we understand, as men who understand the importance of lifting as we climb and giving back to our community, is that we've got to be in the middle somewhere. We can't be too far gone on we're not gonna do it any way different, stubborn, old school way, and we can't be too in the weeds of the young people. So we're trying to be right there in the middle and serving as that bridge between our generations. And so conversations like this are not only important for us, but the community at large who are watching this. And so this has been an exciting 3 days for us. We truly appreciate you all for what you've given us, and we will have some marching orders that come out of this conversation. We've already come up with some plans for how we move Omega in the state of Florida forward, which I'm hoping we'll be able to elevate to the district in which we reside. And so just really exciting and good opportunity for us to be lobbying to our community that silence is not an option for us, and the work does continue, and it shall and it will this day and forevermore. So we thank everyone that took opportunity to come to Tallahassee and participate, and each and every one of these panelists for your time, and most importantly, those gems you provided to us. So with that, I say thank you, and to the next portion of the agenda.
All right.